TBRI.
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 TOVD.
TBRI.
TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention.
TBRI is an attachment-based,
Trauma-informed intervention
that is designed to meet the complex needs
of vulnerable children.
TBRI uses empowering principles
To address physical needs,
connecting principles for attachment needs,
and correcting principles to disarm fear-based behaviors.
While TBRI is based on years of attachment, sensory processing, and neuroscience research,
the heartbeat of TBRI is connection.
Hello and welcome to the TBRI podcast. You're listening to Season 11, Episode 6. On this show, we talk all about TBRI, or Trust-Based Relational Intervention. We talk about different elements of the model itself, and we also talk about how TBRI is applied in various communities of care and practice. I'm Emily Pickett, producer of the podcast, and today we are passing the mic to one of our own. Dr. Casey Call is the Assistant Director of Education here at the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development at TCU. Dr. Call oversees our Child Development academic program, and today she's talking with a few of our graduating seniors about their experience in the Child Development Program at TCU and also about what's next for them. We're so proud of these students, and we can't wait to see all the ways they will continue to change the world for children. Please enjoy this episode with Dr. Call, Annie, Madison, Maya, Annalise, and Rachel.
All right, welcome Madison. Thank you for being here. And will you start out by telling us just a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so my name is Madison Wagoner. I'm from Norman, Oklahoma, and I'm a senior at TCU. I'm double majoring in child development and social work.
Excellent. What brought you to TCU?
The Child Development Program brought me to TCU. I learned about the KPICD because of my mom, because I have two siblings that are adopted, and so we use TBRI in my home. And so I learned about the program from my mom, and I was like, TCU is the only place I want to go. It's the best place to study child development. I didn't know what I wanted to do as a career, but I knew that this was what I wanted to learn. And so I was like, this is the place for me, and that's where I wanted to go, and that's where I am.
So cool. Did you come in as a child development major, or did you change? Like, how did your kind of major and minor or career paths kind of develop over the 4 years?
Yeah, I came in as a child development major. I'm pretty sure I came in as the double major, but I don't totally remember. I just know that for child development majors, you have to have either a second major or a minor. And so it might have started out as a social work minor, but I chose social work because I thought that it would have the most kind of correlation. And thinking ahead of like what maybe I wanted to do, I thought social work would be helpful for me to have that knowledge. And then I decided to just double major because at the time I was like, why not? It can't be that hard. I was wrong, but but I just decided to double major because I thought there would be a lot of overlap. And there has, but there's also a lot of good like differences too.
What have been your different, like, did you know all, like, exactly what you want to do after you graduate, or has that developed or changed over time?
That's definitely developed and changed and gone in circles. When I graduated high school, I was like, I'm going to go to law school when I graduate college. That's what I want to do. My little brother was adopted through the foster care system. So and my family had fostered a lot of other kiddos. And so I was like, I want to work in that system within the legal system. And then I came to college and I learned a little bit more about law school, and I was like, no, thank you. That's not for me. That sounds really hard. Like maybe I'll explore the social work route and like maybe do something in that realm. And then as I did different internships and like shadowed and took different classes, I kept coming back to like the legal system. And I felt that for the change that I want to create in the world, the best way I can do that is with a JD. And so I'm back to the law school route.
Excellent.
Yeah.
What have been some influential or impactful classes that you've had at TCU?
I remember the first child development class I took was Trauma-Informed Interventions with Dr. O. And I just remember, I think it was like sophomore year, my first semester, sophomore year. And I was so excited because I was like, this is what I wanted to come and learn about. Like, this is why I came to TCU. Like, this is my passion, and this is the stuff that really excites me and that I think is so important. And so like learning about the different interventions, and like we got to like TBRI was just like one little unit of that class, and I was like catching a glimpse of like what the rest of my time at TCU was going to look like. And so I just remember that was a really exciting class because the book we read, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog, that was a great book. We had a lot of good like guest speakers, and Doctor was a great professor. But just like that first little glimpse into the child development program made me really excited to keep going.
Yeah. Can you tell us about any kind of internships or like service learning opportunities that you've done that have impacted what you're going to do later on?
Sophomore year, I took the child development internship class, and I interned at a place called Brain Balance here in Fort Worth. And it's a little bit similar to like an OT PT, kind of like that mixed with ABA. And so I was working with kids, and it was a great experience. And I was like, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yes.
Because I love working with kids, but I was going there and I was like, this is not the style in which I would want to work with kids. And I think that helped me see that I was really leaning more towards like systematic change instead of like one-on-one kind of like casework style. And so that was good to like learn that about myself. And like I needed something that was going to be different every day. I didn't want to like do the same routine all the time. That wasn't beneficial for me.
Yeah.
And that wasn't an environment that I really enjoyed working in. And so that was good to know. And then let's see, what else have I done? I did an internship under the 231st District Court here in Tarrant County, and that's a family judge. And so I was there for a semester, and I really just got to sit in the courtroom and observe court for a whole semester. And that was really fascinating to me. That's what helped me decide on the law school route instead of social work, because I loved it. It was like, it could be the most boring thing, but I thought it was really interesting. We had a lot of different cases coming in. I really got to see more of like the divorce side for the first time. I had always really been against like doing any sort of divorce law. When you say family law, people are like, oh, so you're going to do divorces? And I was like, no, I don't want to do that. But it kind of gave me a different like perspective shift within that realm. And so that was really helpful. And then this year, for my social work major, I have to do a field placement all year, senior year. And so I'm with Family Court Services in Tarrant County. And that's a good overlap between social work and child development, because we work with families who are ordered by the judge to come in and do services with us. And so I've done like some child interviews and gone to schools, interviewed adults and parents, done home visits, kind of like all the things.
Wow.
And so that's been a really great learning experience there, to just see all the different sides of how the system works.
Yeah. I think that when you're telling me about all of the different placements you've done, and I always say this to students, it's so important to figure out what you don't like, just as important it is to figure out what you do like. Just like relationships, right? So I'm glad that you had an experience where you're like, okay, I don't think that's going to be for me.
Yeah.
I think that's important. So what are your plans after you graduate in a couple of weeks?
So my plans are to go to the University of Oklahoma for law school in the fall. So I want to do family law. And hopefully work more of like the foster care, like CPS state side of family law, but we'll see what I enjoy and what I like once I get there.
That's amazing. I'm so excited for you and wish you the very best of luck. If you had to use one word to describe what you've learned or the child development program here, is there one word that comes to mind for you?
The child development program specifically, I think I would say connection.
Oh,
that'll be my word.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us, Madison.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Welcome, Annie.
Hi.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for talking to us for the podcast today.
Thank you for having me here. It's my pleasure.
Yes. Will you just start out by telling us your name, where's home for you, and what brought you to TCU?
Okay, so my name is Annie, or Ana Cristina. I'm from Ecuador, and what brought me to TCU was the Child Development Program, because I was looking for something with psychology and child development, and I don't know, TCU and the KPICD come up, and I saw like what you were going to teach, and I was fascinated by it. So that's why I choose here.
Yeah. What were your career goals when you started here?
My career goals?
Yeah. What did you like come into TCU thinking like, I want to do this for a career?
So since I was 13 years old, I knew I wanted to be a therapist. But when I came here and started like the classes, the child development classes specifically, like I knew that my purpose was going to be helping others through what I learned here. It could be by being a therapist or by doing camps or expanding TBRI in Latin American countries, but that was what I wanted to do.
I think of all the ways that you have been a service to others and you have helped others just since your time here. You have volunteered at the Hope Connection 2.0 camp. You have assisted our resource team and our research team. You've helped Katie with the Spanish podcast. You have completed an internship. You have traveled on study abroad experiences. You have really, I think, taken advantage of so many opportunities. And I'm wondering what stands out to you as being like one of the most impactful experiences or something that you really feel has kind of led you in the direction that you're going?
Okay, so overall, I think that TBRI by itself, like, has made me, like, being aware of my own history and being aware of my surroundings. Like, it has changed me, how I look at the world around me and how I look at others. And, like, it just have helped me improve my own mental health, which will let me help others improve their mental health, because with me it worked. And I've seen how, like, well, if I have to choose one of these experiences that we just mentioned, I would choose the Hope Connection camp and coding the AAI, because, well, the Hope Connection camp, because I was able to help the children and see their struggles, like, from firsthand, and seeing how in the first camp and the second one they were able to improve and they remembered the skills and they were more calm. And I know that that's what they're gonna bring back home. I know it's not a linear process, but seeing how, like, being part of 2 weekends for them was going to make them feel better and improve. And yes, and then, like, well, on the Hope Connection camp, when I was on the parent room, like, it was so amazing to see how the parents were pouring all their hearts in wanting to learn about TBRI and do better for their families. So I think that that's so inspiring, and it has changed me as a person and as wanting to help others through TBRI. And then coding the AAI, like, seeing how, like, people being aware of their attachment can change them towards, not change them as a personality, like, side, but change them as, like, being from an insecure attachment towards an secure attachment, and how that can impact, like, positively in their mental health. So both of those experiences, I feel like, have been the best.
You know, when I think about you, I think about mindfulness. You even created a mindfulness exercise for the parents to take home. And I love that your two experiences that you described are, one, helping the parents to gain insight, and the other one is helping yourself to gain some insight about your own history. I think that is so cool. Yeah. So, and that is one of our goals here, is self-awareness. So when we do step out into whatever field we go into, we are able to be more present, right?
100%.
Yeah, that's so cool. What are your plans after you graduate?
So I just decided this week, so you don't know them, but I just signed up for a master's, which is like a triple. I know that this in the United States doesn't exist because the processes are different, but I just signed up for a triple master's in Madrid, which is clinical psychology, psychotherapy in trauma and attachment, and psychotherapy in cognitive behavioral therapy. Yes.
Wow.
So
is it 10 years long?
No, it's 2 years long.
Okay.
I'm gonna do the theory online from wherever the world takes me, but for now from Ecuador. and I'll do the practice in person on their clinics.
So you'll get to go to Madrid to do the practice part after you're done with the theoretical part?
Yes.
That is amazing.
So I'm so excited. And then I want to keep working on TBRI. I'm interviewing with a place in Ecuador. I just had the interview yesterday. That's why you don't know.
Yeah.
But they do something similar like TBRI, and they want to like hire someone new to be able to improve their team and get to more people, because this is the first person that is doing this in Guayaquil, where I live. So hopefully I get that, and I will be able to teach TBRI to others, which is what I want to do.
That sounds amazing. Are you going to continue to help Katie with the TBRI in Latin America?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
I just told her when I finish my exams and everything, let me know and I can help you again with the podcast and everything you need. But for now, I was on a break.
Yes, you need a break. You deserve a break.
Yes.
All right. Annie, thank you so much for joining us, and we wish you so much luck. I can't wait to see what you do.
Thank you. Thank you for having me here and for everything.
All right. Welcome, Rachel.
Thank you.
Thank you for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Of course.
Yes.
I'm excited.
Will you start out by just telling us your name and how you came to be a child development major at TCU?
Yes.
Okay.
My name is Rachel McCutcheon. I'm from South Carolina, and I actually started out at the University of Tennessee. So I didn't come to TCU until sophomore year, but I was a child and family studies major at Tennessee and learned about the child development program at TCU and the Institute and just how specific it was with trauma-informed interventions. And so that's when I made the switch, was fall of sophomore year.
Cool. How did you learn about it? Through your classes?
Actually, in high school, my high school registrar for our college counseling was a child life specialist at Cook Children's for 5 years. And she went to UT Austin, but she almost went to TCU. And so she was the one who kind of told me about TCU and the Institute.
Wow. And so did you start out, when you transferred to TCU, did you start out as a child development major?
Yes, I started out as a child development major. I hadn't decided on a minor yet, but I had come in originally planned to do child life, and then I took professional development with you and kind of was open to all the different professions. And so that's when I decided maybe I want to do something different.
Did you take any classes to help you kind of explore kind of which direction you wanted to go with your minor that were influential to you or that helped you make a decision?
Not necessarily. Well, I took one class for social work, and I quickly learned I don't think I was the right person for social work. It takes a very special person, but I've always been very interested in journalism and kind of the media and stuff, so I decided to do that as my minor. But it's been really interesting. I was able to kind of combine the two and like write a story on Care and Purpose, which was super cool, and kind of combine my major and minor together.
That is very cool. Yeah, that story was one of the best we've ever had published. It was so well researched, but then you also had that compassionate passion, that passionate part of it, and that you knew it from the inside out. So it was so good.
It was fun to write.
Yeah. What class or professor or experience have you had while you've been here that you think has been really impactful to kind of the direction that you want to go?
I think there's been 2 classes, both with Dr. O. I think trauma-informed interventions was super cool because before coming to college, I was super unaware of any of that. I did not have personal experience with any of it. I didn't know what EMDR stood for. I had never heard about the book, The Boy Who Was Raised as a Dog. So I feel like it was super insightful, and I learned a lot in that class. And it was, it was at 8 a.m., but it actually got me up, and I was excited to go at 8 a.m. And then also her class, Family Systems, I took. When I went in, I kind of thought we would just look at it, I guess, on a surface level, or maybe look at families in books or families in movies, but we got to reflect on our own family, which was super cool because normally on day-to-day you don't do that, kind of reflect on your family dynamic because you don't know anything different. So it's super cool to kind of dive in and see the way my family works together versus other people.
Yeah. Normally we don't do that till later in our life when we have our own families. And we're like, oh, yeah. Yes. I think that's one of the unique things that our child development program brings to you. And I was just talking about this with Annie, is that self-awareness piece. So not only about yourself, but about your relationships and your family and stuff. Yeah, that's cool. You have been on study abroad. You have, like you said, written articles about child development. You've gotten to do some really cool things. So will you tell us a little bit about your study abroad experience and how that has affected you or what you're taking away from that?
Yes. So sophomore year, I went to Madrid. And that, I think, influenced me both in and outside of the classroom. That's where I met some of my best friends. I got to know you and Sarah better. So I feel like it was just really sweet. I feel like that's where our core group and community kind of grew, and that's why we're so close in the major. But also it's really interesting in Spain, something Madison and I still talk about is how different their child welfare system is. And again, before I came to TCU, I really didn't even know anything about the child welfare system. So it's really cool to see the difference in their adoption and foster care agencies versus America, and kind of see maybe what they do better versus what maybe we do better. And kind of comparing and contrasting and seeing what we think would work best overall.
Yeah, I think the one thing that really stuck with me from that trip is how all of the NGOs really prioritized leisure and play, and we don't do that here. And it was kind of like more of a right there than a privilege or a something extra, you know. What are your plans after you graduate?
So after I graduate, which is so soon, I'm going to Samford University, which is in Birmingham, Alabama, and I'm going to get my master's in speech language pathology, which I'm super excited about. So it'll be a 3-year program, but I'm excited.
That's amazing. How did you decide on that for a graduate program?
So actually in high school, I had looked into speech pathology maybe. My aunt, my junior year, had oral cancer, and so she had a speech pathologist who would come to our house all the time. So at first I was actually very against it. I thought it was maybe too close to home and I didn't want to have one. But then as time went on, and I realized I actually did want to do that for people like her. And then I also had a speech pathologist when I was like 5 for a speech impediment. But it wasn't until that junior year that I learned that they could work in places other than schools. But then I thought, no, maybe I'll just do something different. Don't want to have to think about that all the time. Then through professional development and other things, I learned how OTs, PTs, SLPs, etc. all work together, and how you can actually bring TBRI into that field. So that's what I'm most excited for, is bringing TBRI into the field, and also hopefully educating other people who are speech path majors on attachment and such, and how important the family aspect is outside of the clinic.
That was going to be my follow-up question, is how do you think your knowledge of trauma and intervention is going to help you in the SLP field?
I think it'll help a lot. My goal, hopefully one day, is to work in the NICU and help with feeding and swallowing disorders, which I think would be super fun. But I think a lot of SLPs who maybe don't have the trauma background focus a lot just on the patient. But I think with my education from the Institute, knowing the effects that it has on the family and the parent overall, between the separation between the mom and the dad and the child in the NICU, and just learning how important their how much of an influence that has on the child even after they are discharged, and how life may look different even when they leave the NICU, and educating them on that, which a lot of other staff members like respiratory therapists, nurses, OTs may not have that knowledge. Yeah, you're going to have a really cool perspective. I think in the 2 classes you said were influential, the trauma-informed interventions and the family systems, like tie right in with that. That's really cool. To kind of combine the two. Yeah. I'm excited. That's so cool. Yeah. Thank you for joining us today, Rachel. Thank you. I wish you the very, very best of luck. Welcome, Maya Beth.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being
me
here.
Yeah.
So if you'll just start by telling everybody your name and major, minor, and what brought you to TCU.
Yes. So my name's Maya Beth Farmer. I go by Maya or Maya Beth. I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, and my family has always been Horned Frog fans, so it's kind of inevitable. I'm a child development major with a social work minor. And what else? Cool. What other question? Is that all of them?
That's good. Okay. Did you start out as child development and social work, or did your path wind? Or
my path
did
wind. So I originally started out as an interior design major with a child development minor, because my mom is a PA in the hospitals, and she had found out about child life specialist and really wanted me to do that. And so to kind of please her, I decided to make it as my minor. And it wasn't until spring semester of my sophomore year that I took my first child development course, which was Fundamentals of Child Life Practice. And it just rocked my world. I had kind of decided that even if I did graduate with an interior design degree, that I would want to do child life anyways. So it was kind of like fate, pretty much. I ended up changing my major to child development and my minor to social work, and I just kind of did a full 180.
For those who don't know what child life is, how would you describe it?
Child life is, the way I describe it to people, it's someone in the hospital. They're not a nurse, but they're not a therapist, but it's someone in the hospital who is really educated on developmental theories, as well as different therapeutic and coping play as well as just like techniques. And so there's all different avenues in which you can help in child life. So the ER, you can do inpatient, outpatient, but basically they work with kids and help kids with basically coping with the hospital. So whether that's coming in, having to get an IV or just get an x-ray, it's helping make them comfortable through therapeutic play. Medical play is a huge aspect. We also do a lot of grief and loss and bereavement support, as well as just overall support for families and siblings. And they really work as like an advocate for that child and their family as well.
Well, how do you think, I think it's such a cool profession. I wish there was like a million in each hospital because it's so valuable. How do you think your knowledge and skills in TBRI will help you in the child life field?
I think the biggest way they're going to help me is I one time was in a hospital and I heard a nurse say, "What is wrong with that kid?" And for me, like TBRI really like tries to get you to reframe the way you think about like kids' behaviors, because their behavior is their way of like acting out something that happened to them. And so really trying to like reframe that and work it into what happened to them, and really trying to get to that other side of their behavior rather than just looking at, oh, okay, like they're acting this way, so this is how they have to be. And so I think in the child life profession, so many times you have kids come into the hospital and they're terrified or they're screaming and kicking, and you're like, people just get really overwhelmed, and kind of understanding, okay, what's underneath all this, and how can I help like make this a more comfortable situation for this child.
Would you say you're trying to see the need beneath the behavior?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Awesome. I was like, I think that's what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree. And then, so if people aren't aware, our child development program has 10 classes that are approved by the ACLP as meeting the requirements for you to take the child life exam. What are so when we're talking about child life, and you've had the 10 courses, you have secured a practicum.
Yes.
So tell us about that and where you're going to go, and when does that start?
So I begin my practicum here in about 2 weeks on May 5th at Children's Medical Center in Dallas. I'm hoping to have rotations in an intensive care unit and the ER, but we'll see. And I went through a whole interview process, application process. I completed all my required courses for my practicum, and so I'm looking forward to starting that and completing it at the end of August.
That's exciting. What do you do after you finish your practicum?
So I will be taking just like a gap semester to just work and get some experience while I'm working on my application for my formal internship. So you aren't required to have a practicum, but it's highly recommended to have a practicum before applying for your formal child life internship, which is required in order to sit for the certification exam. So I will just be working on applications and doing work, either nannying or working with the nonprofits, in order to just get some more experience under my belt before I hopefully begin my internship in the spring.
Excellent. So if you think back about those 10 classes that you took, is there one that stands out to you, or one that really was impactful to you?
There is. The one that I would say really stands out, and it's just because it completely got my college future and college journey in a completely different way, was Fundamentals of Child Life Practice. It just really changed my life. I was on a completely different trajectory, and taking that class really just made me aware of my gifts and talents. And it was really the first time within my educational experience where I felt like I was competent, and I was in a place where I didn't feel like I needed to be smarter or have to try really hard to do well at something. I was just it all clicked. And for me, that class just changed everything, and hearing the stories and just learning about all the different types of play and the importance of child life specialists. It was just the biggest part of my college journey, I would say.
That is so cool. You kind of feel like you found the right thing when that happens.
Yes.
All right. Maya Beth, we wish you the best of luck. I can't wait to hear what hospital you land at as a child life specialist. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Casey.
All right. Welcome, Annalise.
Hi.
Thank you for being here today and for joining us for the podcast. If you'll start out by just saying your name and major, minor, what brought you to TCU, that would be great.
Yeah, well, my name is Annalise DeRosa. I am from Gig Harbor, Washington, which is about 45 minutes south of Seattle.
Okay.
And what brought me to TCU was, my mom grew up in Houston, so I have always kind of wanted to go back to Texas. She's always wanted to go back to Texas, so I just started touring pretty much every big school in Texas, and TCU was what I liked the best, and I knew I wanted it, so I applied early decision.
Nice.
And was committed from then on.
That's cool. What major and minor did you start out with?
I actually applied as a business major.
Okay.
But then during the summer before my freshman year, I kind of decided that wasn't for me. I decided to switch into child development because I had heard some people at orientation talking about child development, and I was like, that sounds like way more up my alley, kind of, because I volunteer at a Girl Scout camp every summer for a week, and I had actually gone to the camp when I was little. So I think after that, I was like, child development for sure. It's something I really had a passion for.
What was the first child development class you took? Do you remember?
Global advocacy.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what stands out from that class to you?
I don't remember too much from it because I think it was second semester of my freshman year, but I remember having to do a bigger project for it, and I created a pediatric suicide awareness page on Instagram where I made little graphics. Cool. So that was, and tried to spread awareness about it. So that was fun.
Yeah. And what's your minor?
Psychology.
Okay. What led you to choose child development and psychology together?
I took AP psychology in high school, and I really liked it, especially abnormal psychology. I remember when we were learning about the personality disorders and stuff like that in my AP psychology class, I was sitting down with my mom and I was like, I don't know, psychology is just really interesting, and I could really see a future in this. Yeah. I was like, oh, but I should probably stay in business though.
It's a logical choice.
Yeah. And then I realized I was like, no, I have to follow my passion for that. So, and psychology to me just felt like an obvious choice to pair with child development.
Yeah.
Really
they go well together.
Yeah.
You've done a lot of stuff in the child development major. You have volunteered at Hope Connection 2.0. Yes. You've joined us on a study abroad trip. I'm wondering if you can share from being a buddy at camp, kind of what was that experience like for you, and is there anything that you think will help you in your future that you're taking away from there?
Yeah, it was a really awesome experience, obviously being a buddy at Hope Connection. I had the biological child for my buddy when I was at Hope Connection, and at first it was a little bit tougher to connect with him because sometimes it tends to be a little bit more difficult to connect with the biological children when they have an adopted sibling. But eventually at the end of the 2 weeks, we were able to play sports together. And even though I'm not the best at sports, I tried my hardest and we ended up having a really good connection at the end of it. And I think it taught me a lot more about the biological siblings, because I feel like we learn a lot about the adopted siblings and stuff like that, which is obviously still really important.
Right.
But it kind of taught me more about what that would look like, having an adopted sibling and stuff like that.
I think that's one of the really cool parts of the Hope Connection 2.0 now, is that we really want to serve the whole family unit and not just the children who are adopted, but also the biological children. So thanks for bringing that up. I think that's a cool aspect.
Yeah.
Did you learn anything about yourself being a buddy at camp?
I learned kind of that I need to be really patient. Because I remember my first year at Hope Connection Camp, I was kind of like a second buddy to an adopted, I think they were twins and they were adopted. I can't remember. And they were a little bit younger. And they really tested my patience. They were running up and down the stairs here in Reese Jones, and I just really had to learn to, take a couple deep breaths and kind of fix myself before I help them.
Yeah, that mindfulness piece that we talk about all the time.
Yeah,
right?
I had to be really mindful and just calm down a little bit before.
Yes. What are your plans after you graduate?
I plan to move back home for the summer, back to Gig Harbor and work. Probably just some retail job or something like that, just for a last little summer before getting too serious into my adult life. And then move back here to Fort Worth for a gap year and work on applying to graduate school for clinical mental health counseling.
Excellent.
Hopefully do that in 2026, but you never know what path life will throw you on, so I'm kind of prepared for whatever. But those are my current plans.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thanks for joining us here today.
Yeah, of course.
The TBRI podcast is produced by the Care and Purpose Institute of Child Development at TCU. To learn more about TBRI and the resources mentioned in this episode, please visit child.tcu.edu/podcast.